Earlier this year, there was a video review in which I said that the Insta360 Link was the king of the webcams because of its features, the AI tracking and the pan tilt zoom, features that the other two of the big three didn't provide. Now, is it still king of the webcams in 2023? Because there's a new kid on the block. The OBSBOT Tiny 2 just might have something to say about that, and we're gonna find out in this video of Level Up. All right, time to see what comes inside the box. And just looking right here, we've got documentation, and I am loving this right here. The OBSBOT gives you a traveling case. We've got a USB-C to USB-C cable. You have a USB-C to USB-A adapter. And then we've got our monitor stand on the bottom. We've got our two little, you see these little marks right here? These are built-in microphones. Very nice. And pan tilt zoom. Oh yeah, oh check that out. It's magnetic. When it's on the magnet, that is pretty solid. The OBSBOT Tiny 2 is just, I would say, a smidge bigger. Looking at the sensors. So let's just go ahead and put it on. All right, full disclosure, both companies sent me these webcams. Insta360 sent me their Link webcam for review on this channel, and the OBSBOT Tiny 2 has provided me the webcam for review on this channel as well. So in case you're wondering about fairness or biasness, there's no favoritism here. They were both provided. However, both of them have received my ethics statement. I refuse to accept these cameras unless they agree to my ethics statement, which says, just because you send me this webcam does not guarantee that you're going to get a video review. Just because I do a video review does not guarantee the result of that review, good or bad. And any opinions or thoughts expressed in my videos will be mine and mine alone, and it'll be done in my schedule and my schedule alone. And they both sent them out to me. Having received those ethics statements, I am not paid. There are no requirements whatsoever. And again, both of them were provided to me, so there's no way I can get out of this without hurting one of their feelings. Somebody's going to lose in this one. So for me, it's a win-lose, but for you guys, it's a win-win because you're going to be able to see for yourself which camera you like in your own opinion. And if you want my opinion, if that matters to you, I'll give it to you in the end. So with that being said, let's go ahead and move forward with the video review. Right now, I have it in 4K, 30 frames per second, just to show you how amazing this looks. This is my presets in here. Auto features are turned off except for autofocus. Autofocus is on, but everything else is turned off. And before we run through the feature set, I'm going to bring it back down to 1080 and 30 frames per second so you guys can see what this webcam does. If you're doing live streams, Zoom calls, things like that, you're not going to want to do those in 4K 30. So I'm going to bump this down to 1080, 30 frames per second as we go through the feature sets in here as a realistic interpretation of how you're going to use this in a live stream on YouTube or a Zoom call, conference call, things like that. All right, here we go. Let's check out the feature sets. We have this camera button right here, activates the preview, turns it on and turns it off. So let's go ahead and turn that back on. This is your power mode to turn it on and off or go into sleep mode, if you will. This is to connect your remote. There is a separate remote you can get to connect with this and operate it remotely. This button right here is for your hotkeys, global hotkeys, so you can use your keyboard for presets. You can also connect this with your Elgato Stream Deck to use that to operate your OBSBOT Tiny 2, which is really cool. This is to activate your desktop mode, and this is for your server connection. You have your 3 presets right here. Insta360 Link gives you 6. This gives you 3. Then we have right here, our AI tracking, we have zone tracking. This is so cool. This is a new feature in the OBS that the Insta360 Link does not do. And let's just check this out. If you are a teacher or you are a salesman or a businessman where you're doing a Zoom call or you're teaching a class and you have whiteboards or presentation boards in your room, multiple ones, and you want to be able to have a camera or a webcam follow you around, but with the Insta360 Link, when it tracks you around, if you're not using a whiteboard, it will either focus on the whiteboard or it will focus on you in the center of the shot. Now, with zone tracking, you can preset multiple locations in the room that you want to be able to have for your presentation, but leave AI tracking on to track you from one location to the next as you go from one zone to another. confused about what I'm talking about, let's go ahead and try it. Let's activate it. Then we're going to hit set. Now here I've already went in and added 2 presets. What you do is you just kind of dial it in where you want. And then here, let's just do preset number 1, and we can add this as your 3rd preset. That's all you got to do. Pick a spot, click it, and add it. And if you want to get rid of it, you can delete it. But I added those 2 presets right there. So let's go ahead and let's go back, normal tracking. So check this out. This is zone number 1 because I'm in my zone. If I turn the zone tracking off and I go to normal tracking, it's got me. But if I want to be able to maintain me in the zone, but I want it to follow me when I leave that zone, click that on. And now it's going to track me. And when I get here, it's going to stay in that zone. As you see with zone tracking, now that I'm in the shot, it's not going to follow my face while I'm in this zone. I can move wherever I want while I'm in this zone, and I'm not hitting my head on the ceiling. But when I leave the zone, it will leave with me. Now I'm completely gone. It's still tracking me, and it's going to go back over to this zone where now it's following me. Really cool. And now we're back. So cool for presentations and classroom teaching if that's what you need this camera for. Then here we have upper body, close-up, headless, and lower body. Close-up gets it in nice and tight where it zooms in a little bit, and it makes sure that no matter where you are, it stays really close to your face. It's going to kind of keep me from my chest to the top. Upper body is going to do this. Upper body is going to have more of my waist to my head in a shot. Then we have headless. Headless is going to eliminate my head, and it's going to allow me to do presentations where it's not focusing on my face, but it's focusing on an object now. But it's still going to track my body as I move around. It's going to maintain this frame. It's not going to put your face back in it. And then lower body, let's say you're on Amazon and you're selling clothes and you're doing reviews of clothes. You're able to show people the pants, and you're able to move around with the pants and show everybody what it looks like as you're moving around. So back to normal tracking. What's really cool about these features right here, the upper body, close-up, headless, and lower body, as far as selling things, if you're one of those Amazon reviewers that sell product on Amazon, clothes, jewelry, microphones, cameras, whatever it is, it's going to have you covered for all the different things it can do for your shot. And then down here for AI mode, you have desk mode, whiteboard mode, hand mode, and group. Now, desk mode and whiteboard mode, we know what they are. Hand mode is really cool and very different because it tracks your hand instead. So if I'm just saying, hey, you know what? I've got different lights in my studio right now. Right now I have my Logitech Lighter Beam lighting the right side of my face. I've got my RCB 120 studio light pointed at the wall to give me some good flooding to make sure the room is nice and bright for you guys as I'm trying to show you what this camera can do. And I've got a light in the back right there, a little Home Depot floodlight, pan light with a regular incandescent bulb in it because I think it helps bring out the yellow in the wood a lot better in my background. And then above me, I have a CFL 24-watt bulb without any diffusion on it because I feel like it gives me a little more detail in my hair. Dude, I love the hand tracking. Now, group mode, I don't have a lot of people. I'm by myself, but from what I understand, when you have group, it does its best to keep everybody that's in the frame, zooming in and out, and not focusing on just one person. And we can use the gimbal right here to move the camera around wherever we want. So we have wide mode, then you can select medium mode, and you can select narrow mode. Now, what you've been watching me on is 1080p, 30 frames per second. The general rule of thumb when you're live streaming is to live stream in 1080p. It has less problems than you would have in 4K. But if you're recording videos, you can go up to 4K 30. So let's go ahead and switch to that. All right, now that I'm in 4K 30, let's go ahead and run through our image settings. First off, on the top, we have HDR, high dynamic range. What that does is high dynamic range gives you better depth of color, which means more colors in between the darkest and the lightest in your room. So let's go ahead and activate that and turn that on. And as you can see, there's a lot more color in there. Very nice. And brightens everything up. Just great job. Great job. All right, so exposure, I have turned off the auto exposure because when I have the auto exposure on, because I've got that window behind me, it affects with my auto exposure. So if I turn it on, you're going to see as I'm moving from in front of this to outside of this, it kind of pulsates with the auto exposure. It struggles a little bit. So in order to, so you can see how it gets lighter and darker when I'm in front of that. The reason I have that window open is I just want to I want to throw as much stuff as I possibly can at this webcam to see how it does. I'm not putting it in the most ideal situation because every webcam can look great in its best settings. I want to throw stuff at it so you guys know how it handles different situations. So white balance, as a general rule, I leave it off because when it's on, you're going to see how it's pulsating in different colors. This is not an OBSBOT Tiny 2 issue. This is a camera issue regardless. My Sony ZV-E10 does that in auto white balance. I noticed I'd actually left it on auto white balance when I was testing something, and then I went and recorded a video, and I had my TV in the background. You see in my previous videos, I'll leave my TV in the background with the screensaver on it to kind of give you something to look at other than my ugly face. And when the screen went light to dark, it changed the color of my face as well. You don't want that, especially when you're in post and you're like cutting scenes out. So general rule of thumb, I don't care if you're using an OBSBOT Tiny 2, an Insta360 Link Elgato, Facecam Pro, or the Razer Kiyo Pro Ultra Plus Z175, whatever you want to call that camera, or a mirrorless camera from the Sony ZV-E10 all the way up to the Sony A7 III or some of those really great cameras, the FX3, whatever they are. Get your white balance where you want it. Leave it there. Save yourself so many headaches when it comes to editing after you're done with your videos. We do 5600K, which is daylight. This is what it looks like. We'll leave it at 50, a little cooler, just to kind of help my face separate from the palette wall in the background. We'll do 5200K for there. Image, we have contrast, saturation, sharpness, and hue. So contrast, I bump up to 52 because it makes my wall just a smidge darker up here and my RGB lights pop a little more. Saturation, I bump that up as well because this camera is so good. The OBSBOT Tiny 2 is so good at color that I bump it up to, like, I don't know. Sometimes I think I go up to 60. Look at that color that it pops in there. So I won't go too much. We'll just kind of go to 55 in saturation. And sharpness, I bump this up because for a webcam, I feel like the OBSBOT Tiny 2 is a little bit softer in my face than the Insta360 Link. So I bump that up to 60, and that kind of gives me that sharpness that I like about the Insta360 Link. And hue, I leave alone. No matter how I mess with it, it just messes with the color of my shot. So these are my settings, and this is what it looks like when it's in auto. Background blur. And you can see there's a lot of lag in 4K. So if this is something you're going to use, I drop it down to 1080, 30 frames per second. That smooths it out a little bit. But background blur, if you got construction going on in the background or your house is a mess or your room is a mess and you don't want them to focus on the things in the background, you can turn background blur on. But I find that it gives a little bit of a lag that I don't like in my shot. So I turn that off. And I'm just going to leave this in 1080 real quick as I go through these because I feel like in 4K, again, it creates lag for these features. You have native, classic, and men. So when you click native for women, it like slims out my chin. Look at that. Chin's there. Look how it thins out my chin. Pops the chin out. Gives me a little bit of smoothness, skin softness, so to speak. And then classic does it even more. And for men, right there, gives you some of those facial blemishes back. Without it, I've got my normal width jaw, but for men, it slims it out just a little bit. And then you've got some features right here for body shape. You've got body slim, you've got leggy, legs, waist, shoulder, head. So just to kind of give you an idea of the things it can do. It can shrink your head if you don't like your big head. So you can do things like that. You can shrink your waist. And then filters down here, you've got nature, you've got fresh, got clear, crystal, film, sheer, pure, black and white, which is not really black and white at all. There's still some color in there, but it kind of takes a lot of that out. And then soda. And then you can do the level to which you want those filters to be in there. So black and white, there you go. Now we have black and white, 100%. It's kind of cool. Just something to spice up or marinate your video a little bit, add some flavor to it. All right, and then on to more. Device sleep. you can select what you see when it goes into sleep mode. So you've got this little screen right here. You can pick that screen right there, or you can add a different screen, your own screen that you've made in Canva or whatever you want your background to be when it goes into sleep mode. And then down here, locked target, turn on or off human tracking. You can do this hand gesture to zoom in and out, or dynamic zoom. Let's turn that on so you can just kind of see what it does. So there's dynamic zoom, and then you can use just the one hand to zoom in and out if you want. And then down here we have voice control, which is also something really cool. So if you don't have a remote, or you can't afford the remote, but you want it to be able to do certain commands without using hand tracking, turn your hand tracking off. So as you're moving your hands around, it's not accidentally activating anything. You have Hi Tiny, which wakes it up, Sleep Tiny, which puts it to sleep, Track Me, which turns on the tracking, Unlock Me, which turns off the tracking, Zoom in closer, zoom out further. That's self-explanatory. And then your zoom factor, and then you can tell it to go to position 1, 2, or 3 as far as your 3 presets you saw in the beginning. What you just heard is I said all those commands, but you notice it didn't activate any of them because, really cool, in order to use these voice commands, you have to stop and pause for a few seconds before they activate. So as you're using a sentence, you say these words on accident, it's not going to activate one of those features. You have to be intentional about it. So let's go through them. I'm going to say a sentence right now with Sleep Tiny. Now I'm going to say it how you should say it. Sleep Tiny. Hi Tiny. Back on. Zoom in closer. Zoom out further. Position 1. Position 2. Because there isn't one. Aha, I never set one. Track Me. Now it's back on me. All right. Now let's go ahead and go back to 4K 30. Get that nice, beautiful, crisp image. I just love it. I love it. Okay, here we go. The side-by-side comparison of the OBSBOT Tiny 2 and the Insta360 Link. I'm not going to let you guys know which one is which because I want you guys to pick out which one you like the most without knowing which one is which. I'll let you guys try and figure that out. Now, I have the high dynamic range turned off. I'm going to go ahead and turn the high dynamic range on for both cameras to see if there is a better emphasis of color in these cameras, if one outperforms the other with the high dynamic range turned on. Now, the camera on the right, I will say, has more definition in my face in the auto features, but the color and just the image clarity is a little more washed out, but more sharp. On the left, I see more vibrancy and more depth of color, more of a dynamic range of color. I also see more detail in the images of the things that are in the shot. And just for instance, I'm going to hold this up and just look at the difference in detail that you see in the object when it's in the frame. So if you are selling something and detail is important, the camera on the left is the one that you're going to want to go with. If color is important to you, the camera on the left is the one that you want to go to. I will say, as far as the edge that I think the camera on the right has, again, is more detail in the face. But if I had to choose between the two, you're not sure what you want out of your shot yet, and you just want the camera to handle it, the one on the left gives you the better image overall. Again, the amount of detail. And I'm going to say this too, the one on the left, the black is better. And the reason that's important that black is better, because one of the things you always notice with cheaper webcams is they struggle to give you accurate blacks, darker blacks, and detail in black. When you have a black shirt on or a black background, you still want to be able to get detail out of those so it doesn't blend in and wash out. So if you like black and you like darker rooms and you have a lot of black stuff in your shot, you still want it to pop out. So you want detail in your blacks. And the image on the left definitely gives you that. I think they both do a good job of tracking in the short term. And let me just get up and move around and see which one follows me around the room better for tracking. Now see, the one on the right has lost me already. The one on the left has me. So the one on the left is starting to score some serious brownie points for me. All right, so now Stepped on my. I still love you. All right. Are we there? Okay. So the one on the left does a better job of keeping me in the frame, and it's more fluid and it's more smooth, and it's already lost me twice just moving around the room. Now let's see how good they are at reacquiring me and keeping me in the frame and again, the camera on the right has, well, now they both lost me. Let me try and pop my face back in both screens to see if they reacquire me. There we go. So on that one, the sit down, both of them lost me. But that was the first time on the left that webcam has lost me out of tracking. Let's see how quickly they can track me real quick. So I'm going to move my over here. Let's see here. But just kind of so the camera on the left is zooming out better, a lot better in order to ensure that I stay in the frame, where the camera on the right is just maintaining that one frame but is struggling to keep me in the camera on the quick movements. Those are the results there. I would say the camera on the left does a way better job of tracking than the camera on the right. You guys ready to see which camera is which? In the reveal, the camera on the left is the OBSBOT Tiny 2, and the camera on the right is the Insta360 Link. So what I really like about the OBSBOT Tiny 2 is it gives me all the features that the Insta360 Link gives me a couple more features on top of that, and it closes the gap as far as color. The differences in color between the Razr and the Insta360 Link. I get a lot more color, a lot more vibrancy. And when I'm going in here, the high dynamic range is just amazing. Now, when I turn the high dynamic range on in the Insta360 Link, I feel like it hurts it a little bit. One of the things I don't use in the Insta360 Link was the HDR, because I felt like it didn't do a good job with it. I felt like it hurt the image, not helped it, so I've never used it. So I'm going to go ahead and engage the HDR just to show you what it looks like. Now see, when I engage the HDR, I've lost that definition in my face. Now I'm losing sharpness, I'm losing crispness, I'm losing detail to get those colors. And even with the HDR engaged with both webcams, you can see the OBSBOT still has more color in it, and it didn't lose the detail. So now I have the washout all over as far as color, a little more misty, a little more hazy, and I've lost that detail, which was the one benefit of the Insta360 Link if I try to do that high dynamic range. So if you want sharpness, you got to turn the high dynamic range off, which I just did. That brings the detail and the sharpness back in the face, but I've lost color. All right, so I've changed my shirt to black, and the reason I did that is I wanted to show you the difference between the two as far as the color black. The deeper, darker, more rich black that you see, the better. The black is deeper and more rich. There's more of a vibrant light to dark on the left. The white pops a lot more. As you see right there, the wrinkles on the shirt, on this image on the left, the light on my chair and my shirt pop out more. More of a gap between the lightest and the darkest to give you more of that depth. And you see on my microphone, the Lewitt LCT240 Pro, the white, but you see the black is deeper in the grill, and the pop filter is deeper. So I'm having to give up something just to try and get closer in something else and not even get there. When I turn off the HDR to keep that detail in the face that I have with the OBSBOT, I've lost a lot of black by doing that. Just looking at the blacks in both these images right here, there's just more detail and depth and dynamic vibrancy in the OBSBOT Tiny 2 in my black. Now time for my final thoughts regarding the OBSBOT Tiny 2 versus the Insta360 Link. I give winning marks to the OBSBOT Tiny 2 in the following categories. Superior tracking. I felt over the last week and a half during different times of doing this review and different segments and testing it that the Insta360 Link had lost me at least 12 times, especially when I was moving through my room and I would move behind something or my face would get lost behind something like the light or my shotgun mic. It would just let go of me and it was not able to reacquire me as often. Or quick movements where my face got out of the screen and I jumped back in, it wasn't able to latch back onto me, where the OBSBOT Tiny 2 did it and did it really well. I also give the nod to the OBSBOT Tiny 2 for more tracking features. the hand tracking, the zone tracking, the headless tracking, the lower body, just different ways that the OBSBOT Tiny 2 can track you without your face, be able to follow you around, and be able to utilize it in so many other ways. I love that. More options. Love options. The HDR feature. With the OBSBOT Tiny 2, when I engaged the HDR feature, I got more vibrant colors, and the blacks were able to pop a little bit more. One of the things I thought the Insta360 Link was better at was the crispness in my face. However, when I engaged the HDR, I felt like I lost that. I felt like it fell behind the OBSBOT Tiny 2, and it was more blurry and more hazy and more, I don't know, just not very clear. I feel like the OBSBOT Tiny 2 does a great job of separation from multiple blacks. I can definitely tell a difference between the curtain, the microphones, the table it's on, my chair, to my shirt, to the microphone. They're all black, but they pop separately in their own way, even when they're all black. Also give the OBSBOT Tiny 2 the nod when it comes to whiteboard features. With the zone tracking, I can go in there and I can designate each whiteboard in my room, and then with the AI tracking, it will track me as I travel and move from one whiteboard to another and keep me in the frame and the whiteboard as well. I also give the edge to the OBSBOT Tiny 2 for the dedicated remote. Now I know Insta360 Link has now given you the option where you could scan your phone, the QR code in the app, and use your phone as a remote. I'm not a fan of that because I like to use my phone during my live streams and my podcasts. I like to receive phone calls and use them via Bluetooth in my Rodecaster Duo. If I'm using my Insta360 Link for my podcast and moving around, I've lost my ability to use my phone in my live stream and communicate, and for people to text me that are outside the room when I'm in the middle of a stream, they need to get a hold of me. Now, if you don't like the fact that you have to spend money for the remote, they still have you covered with the OBSBOT Tiny 2 with the voice commands. I'm able to operate it remotely wherever I am in the room through voice commands, and that doesn't cost me anything. And number one was the travel case. I absolutely loved the travel case. The fact that they give you one that's already made for it, it's got the grooves and the slots in it to protect it. I feel much more comfortable traveling with my OBSBOT Tiny 2 than my Insta360 Link because there is no travel case. At least as of this time of the recording, I've not been able to find anything by Insta360 Link that I can get other than just putting it back in the original box and the original packaging every time I need to go somewhere with it. And lastly, probably the biggest one of all, there were a lot of people in my early review of the Insta360 Link that absolutely loved the webcam and its features, but they could not pull the trigger on it because they felt like there was too much of an infringement on your privacy when it comes to the app. If you want to use the app, you had to agree to all of these things, and some of you felt that was way too much. I'm not comfortable with these requirements or these requests by them to be able to track me in this and track me in that app and my keystrokes and things like that. Not going there, so can't use it. Love it, but I'm not willing to make that sacrifice. With the OBSBOT Tiny 2, you don't have to make that concession. They do ask you if you would like them to be able to follow your keystrokes in other apps or to have access to other folders. I was able to say no to all of those and still use the app. So for those of you who weren't comfortable with the infringement on your privacy that the Insta360 Link requires you to give up in order to use the app, the OBSBOT Tiny 2 does not. Thank you. Now on to the nods where the Insta360 had beat out the OBSBOT Tiny 2. When it came to focusing, I felt like the Insta360 Link was better at staying focused on my face when I was moving around for the tracking. Now, it didn't do as good tracking me, but I felt like it was doing a better job keeping my face focused. But I also think that was one of the reasons why it didn't do such a good job of tracking, where the OBSBOT was more focused on keeping me in the frame. The Insta360 Link is so focused on keeping my face focused that it couldn't track me as well. So there's a give and take there with that one as far as whether you think that's a pro or a con. The other one is that it is cheaper. It's $299 versus $329, and I've noticed it a couple times now over the course of the year where it's gone down to $279 on sale on Amazon, whereas the OBSBOT Tiny 2 is $329. But again, I don't see that as a con for the OBSBOT Tiny 2 because they're giving me a travel case with it. There you go, my final thoughts on the OBSBOT Tiny 2 versus the Insta360 Link. The OBSBOT Tiny 2, officially dethroning the Insta360 Link as my top webcam for 2023. All right, thank you for watching this episode of Level Up. Don't forget to subscribe, hit the like button and the notification bell so you guys are notified when future content goes up, because it is going up. There's more to come, so until I see you guys in the next video, I won't see you till the next video. Just saying. Chew on that one. Peace out.